To build our widget, we're going to start off with using the register widget function. If we come onto the codex for that function and look under example, we can see that it has all of the code we need to copy and paste into our main plugin file to create the basic framework for our widget. Let's go ahead and copy this code, come back into our main plugins file, and then scroll down till we get underneath the options page function, and we'll paste in the example code. In general, what's happening here is we're creating a new class for our widget, creating the ability for it to display content out onto the front end of the site, update any content that the user saves for options for the widget, and then display what we want the widget to look like on the admin side. Then we write a function that registers our widget, and finally, we hook that function to widgets init. To start customizing this for our own needs, we'll first rename the class to WP Treehouse Badges Widget. You could see that I'm using uppercase here instead of lowercase. The reason for this is that WordPress tends to capitalize class names, whereas underscore something like a function name. We'll then create the first function to have the same name as our class, so we can copy that and paste it here. However, since it's a function, we'll go ahead and rename it using lowercase letters. Then we can give our widget a title, which we'll set to Official Treehouse Badges Widget. This is the name that will show up for your widget in the admin area, so you want to pick a name that's clear but also unique so that people know exactly what that widget does before they drag it over to activate it. From here, we'll come down into the widget function and begin setting what we want to display to the front end of the site. The first thing we have to do is write a PHP function called extract and extract any arguments that are coming in to this widget. We're not going to be using any this time. However, we need to include this in our code for it to work. Next, we're going to come down and create a variable called title. This will be the title that shows up above the widget on the front end of the site. We're going to give the person an option to customize what title appears. So what we're going to do now is get a hold of whatever title the person has set it to. The way we'll do this is by using the apply filters function, which means that we're working with a filter, and we're going to tie it to the widget title hook. What we'll then do is pull in the actual title for this instance of the widget that the person has customized with their own title. We'll close that, and then the next bit of information we'll need is the actual profile of the person so that we can display their badges on the front end. This is something we've done before. We'll set an options variable, get our options that we've saved in the database, which are saved under WP Treehouse Badges, and then create a new variable of WP Treehouse Profile, and we'll set that equal to the options array with an index of WP Treehouse Profile. Now we could write out the HTML and PHP that we want to display on the front end of the site. Rather than include our markup here, we're going to require a new file that we'll create called frontend.php. We haven't created it yet, but we know we're going to place it inside of our include file, and we'll call it frontend.php. Go ahead and create a new file and save it into the include folder as frontend.php. Widgets.php. You're then going to take the front-end code you could find in the projects folder and copy it into this new file here. We see a few things we haven't worked with, but they do kind of make sense if we look at them. We could see before widget, before title, and then after widget. If you've ever created a widget for a theme, like we did in our previous How to Build a Theme project, then you should remember the register sidebar function. The register sidebar function is similar to the widget function, and if we look at the codex, we could see that the register sidebar function has a number of arguments. These arguments are set by default and should determine what comes before and after the widget as well as before and after the title. You could see, for example, list items or header tags. If we come back into the code, we could see that we would expect to see the title followed by the name of the person. We'll come back later and replace this with the actual output of all the person's badges. Now, let's come back into our main plugins folder and look at the next function here, the update function. What the update function does is basically take the old version of what the person saved the widget title as well as other parameters as, and replace it with the new instance of what their new settings are. Here's how we'll do that. We'll create a new variable called instance, and we'll set that equal to the old instance. Then beneath that, we're going to add a title to our instance and set that equal to the new instance title. For an extra bit of security here, we're going to use the strip tags function, which will prevent any HTML from displaying up inside of the form. We can then go ahead and return the instance. Even if not every part of this makes sense, what should be clear is that the update function is setting the new instance to replace the old instance. Next, we can come down and look at the form function. This determines what the widget will look like in the admin area. The only thing we really need to do here is pull in the title that the person has set for this particular widget and then display the basic field for them to be able to change this. So what we will do is create a variable for the title and use the escape attribute function to wrap around the instance title. So this will pull in the instance and then allow us to get the title that's been entered for it. We can then require a new file that we're going to name widget fields, where we will place the actual HTML markup that we want to use for the title field. To do that, we'll come into our includes folder, create a new title that we'll name widgetfields.php, and then into it, we'll paste in the code from the downloads. We could see here that we have a title label, a class of wide fat that is a class that WordPress uses, so our field will match what WordPress uses in the admin area, some special code to output the proper name attribute, and then if there's already an existing title, we'll go ahead and echo that out here. Now we can come back into our main plugins folder and we'll update the function to register our function and then hook it in to the widgets init action. We'll name this WP Treehouse Badges and then have the register widget value be equal to the class name that we set up here. Next, we'll have this function match this one right here, And we should be all ready to test our widget within the admin area. When I test it in the browser, I could see that something's broken here, and when I come back and look at the code, I could see that I'm missing .php right here. Once we add in that and refresh the page, we could find our official Treehouse Badges plugin widget and drag that over to our main sidebar and see that we have a title field. We'll save that, come over to the front end of our site, and we could see that we have the correct title outputted on the front end.